Hello and welcome to Indus News live from Islamabad. I am Munib Hamid with the news of this hour. Let's begin with the top stories first. The Association of Southeast Asian Nations has announced a summit on the Myanmar crisis in Jakarta on 24th of April. Meanwhile, the European Union has imposed its toughest sanctions on two junta conglomerates. Anti-coup activists are holding more protests today despite the killing of 738 people in the crackdown so far. Iran has denied reports of a potential interim agreement on the revival of the 2015 nuclear deal. In an interview, Iran's top negotiator Abbas Araghchi said any temporary agreement has not been discussed in Vienna. He said Tehran is only interested in the final removal of the oppressive sanctions. The United States has expressed deep concern over Russia's plans to block foreign ships and state vessels in parts of the Black Sea. The U.S. State Department said the move represents yet another unprovoked escalation in Moscow's campaign to destabilize Ukraine. In a statement, spokesperson Ned Price told Russia to cease what he called its harassment of vessels. The United States has asked its citizens to avoid traveling to India over coronavirus concerns. The Centers for Disease Control and Prevention says even fully vaccinated travelers may be at risk. This comes as India reported its highest daily deaths so far after more than 1,700 people lost their lives overnight. Pakistan has registered over 5,400 cases and 137 deaths overnight, with the toll crossing 16,000. While globally, the virus has claimed more than 3 million lives and infected over 141 million people so far. And in football, Leeds United have held Liverpool to a 1-1 draw at home in their Premier League face-off. A late header from Leeds defender Diego Llorente denied the Reds a place in the top four. The draw leaves Liverpool in 6th place with 53 points, one behind 5th placed Chelsea. Well, these were the top stories. News in detail after a short break. Stay with us. Welcome back. Now let's have the news in detail. The Association of Southeast Asian Nations has announced a summit on the Myanmar crisis in Jakarta on April 24th. Anti-coup activists are holding more protests today despite the killing of 738 people in the crackdown so far. It remains unclear how many leaders will attend in person. But a Thai government official earlier said junta chief Min Aung Hlaing would go to Jakarta. Elsewhere, UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres urged regional actors to find a way out of the catastrophe unfolding in Myanmar. In a tweet, he also retreated his call to end the military repression in the country. Meanwhile, the European Union has imposed its toughest sanctions on two junta conglomerates. Now, Iran has denied reports of a potential interim agreement on the revival of the 2015 nuclear deal. In an interview, Iran's top negotiator Abbas Araghchi said no temporary agreement has not been discussed in Vienna. He said Iran is only interested in the final removal of the oppressive sanctions. Araghchi said Tehran will not rush to reach an agreement. Earlier, Iranian officials noted progress in talks and said an outline for an interim deal had been discussed. Meanwhile, Tehran and UN's nuclear watchdog have started talks over the issue of uranium traces found at undeclared locations in Iran. Now, in a statement, the agency said the IAEA and Iran experts are engaging in a process aimed at clarifying outstanding safeguard issues. Meanwhile, the Taliban claim they have killed 14 policemen in an attack in Afghanistan's northeastern Badakhshan province. Taliban spokesperson Zabihullah Mujahid said they targeted 2 checkposts in Zabak district. In a Twitter post, Mujahid said 3 others were injured in the raid. But a provincial council member said 8 Afghan security personnel were killed and the Taliban also suffered casualties. Abdullah Naji Nazar said the fighters seized weapons and ammo from those checkposts and set them on fire. Meanwhile, 2 members of the Kabul's public uprising forces were killed and several others injured in an attack in the Herat province. Provincial Governor Saeed Waeed Ghattali blamed the Taliban for the attack. Ghattali said troops blew up an explosives-laden vehicle before it could target the nearby police headquarters. The US has expressed deep concern over Russia's plans to block foreign ships and state vessels in parts of the Black Sea. The US State Department said the move represents yet another unprovoked escalation in Moscow's campaign to destabilize Ukraine. In a statement, spokesperson at Price said Russia is harming Ukraine's commerce by impeding access to imports. Price told Russia to cease what he called its harassment of the vessels. He said this development is troubling amid credible reports of the largest Russian buildup in occupied Crimea since 2014. The spokesperson said the US does not and will not recognize Russia's purported annexation of Crimea. Now, the Russian military says it has killed about 200 militants in an airstrike in eastern Syria. The head of the Russian military's reconciliation center in Syria says warplanes hit 2 hideouts northeast of Palmyra. In a statement, Rear Admiral Alexander Karpov said the raid destroyed 24 vehicles and about 500 kilograms of ammunition. Karpov said, according to intelligence data, militants established a camouflaged base to train combat crew. The official said terrorists are being trained at camps in territories that are not controlled by the Syrian authorities. He said the armed groups are plotting attacks on government institutions in big cities ahead of a presidential election in Syria. Now, the United States has asked its citizens to avoid traveling to India over coronavirus concerns. The Centers for Disease Control and Prevention says even fully vaccinated travelers may be at risk. This comes as India reported its highest daily deaths so far after more than 1,700 people lost their lives. Globally, the virus has claimed more than 3 million lives and infected over 141 million. More details in this report.
More than a year after the coronavirus pandemic began, the average number of infections reported each day is now higher than it has ever been. Experts believe the major reason behind this is India's latest wave, as the country now accounts for about 1 in 3 of all new cases. New Delhi has announced to allow all citizens aged over 18 to get vaccinated from May 1st. But this measure could further strain supplies in parts of the world reliant on Indian-made vaccines for their campaigns. Meanwhile, as a 6-day lockdown went into effect in New Delhi, thousands of migrants fled, fueling fears they could spread the virus to their rural hometowns.
I am leaving because a lockdown has been imposed. Nobody helps us in the lockdown. Not the government and definitely not the rented house owner. But we will have to pay everyone. We are far from home and we are here to work hard and earn for our family back home. In this situation, we will end up doing the opposite. We have to go home. Last time when I stayed here, I spent all my savings in 3 months. I had thought that this time I won't stay. This time, if the lockdown happens, I will go home.
Greece has suspended its planned rollout of Johnson & Johnson's single-dose vaccine, pending review by the European Medicines Agency. Climate activist Greta Thunberg has urged governments, vaccine developers, and the world to step up their game to fight inequity after the richest countries bought up most doses and those in poorer nations have gone without. Meanwhile, the World Health Organization has warned about an unprecedented spike in the number of deaths.
Deaths rose for the 5th straight week, and more than 3 million deaths have now been reported to WHO. It took 9 months to reach 1 million deaths, 4 months to reach 2 million, and 3 months to reach 3 million deaths.
The US says it will issue specific warnings not to visit roughly 80% of the world's countries due to the virus risks. In the Middle East, Iranians have been criticizing poor restrictive measures as cases surge to new highs. Meanwhile, a New Zealand airport worker has tested positive for COVID-19 just today after the country opened a quarantine-free travel bubble with Australia.
Meanwhile, in Pakistan, 137 more people have lost their lives to COVID-19 in the past 24 hours. The Health Ministry says the death toll has now risen to 16,453. They said more than 5,400 people have tested positive for the virus overnight. Pakistan has recorded more than 767,000 cases so far. The ministry says more than 667,000 people have recovered from the disease, whereas the number of active cases has crossed 83,000. The ministry said nearly 4,500 patients are in critical condition across the country, and the reported positivity ratio is 8%. Pakistan and the UAE have agreed to enhance their trade and economic cooperation. Foreign Minister Shah Mahmood Qureshi met UAE Minister of State Ahmed Ali Al Zahir in Abu Dhabi. The two sides discussed the Afghan peace process and the security situation in the region. The foreign minister also apprised the UAE minister about human rights violations in Indian-occupied Kashmir. On his three-day official visit, Qureshi also highlighted the immense investment potential in Pakistan. Earlier, the foreign minister called on his counterpart and discussed efforts for regional peace. Qureshi said Pakistan looks forward to showcasing its history and trade potential at the World Expo 2020. Now, Israeli forces have once again demolished a Palestinian Bedouin village in the southern Negev region. Defense of Al-Araqib Committee's member says the village has been demolished for the 186th time. Member Al-Aziz Touri said villagers intend to rebuild their houses and other structures as soon as possible. Homes in Al-Araqib are inhabited by 22 Palestinian families and are built of wood and plastic. The village was first destroyed in 2010 and rebuilt after every demolition since then. Israeli authorities claim the site where it is located falls under state land. Now, in Israel, Likud party's faction chief says Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is on his way to the opposition. This comes after Netanyahu lost an important vote over who gets to join the Parliamentary Arrangements Committee.
Miki Zohar said Netanyahu's party now realizes that it will not be forming a government. The Arrangements Committee controls the legislative agenda in the absence of a new government. A motion floated by Likud was rejected in a close vote, while a rival, Yair Lapid, managed to pass his proposal. With Lapid's proposal, the committee has 33 members of Knesset, 16 from the bloc that wants to oust Netanyahu and 14 pro-Prime Minister. In a tweet, Lapid said Netanyahu's failure is another small step on the way to an Israeli unity government. President Reuven Rivlin has tasked Netanyahu with forming a government, as he had the most backing from other MPs. The Prime Minister has another 15 days to complete the job, or Rivlin can look at other options.
Now, Chinese President Xi Jinping has called for a rejection of hegemonic power structures in global governance. This comes amid rising tension with Washington over a widening range of issues, including human rights. Speaking at the annual Boao Forum for Asia, Xi criticized the unilateralism of individual countries. He said international affairs should be handled by everyone through consultation. The president criticized efforts by some countries to build barriers and said the world wants justice. In an implicit rejection of US dominance, Xi said government should not impose rules on others. Now, Azerbaijan has praised Pakistan for arranging naval peace exercises. Azeri Ambassador Ali Alizadeh called on Naval Chief Admiral Mohammad Amjad Khan Niazi in Islamabad. Alizadeh lauded Pakistan for gathering navies around the world on one forum for collaborative maritime security. Azeri Ambassador and Admiral Niazi discussed matters of mutual interests. The two mulled over bilateral defense cooperation and regional security. More news coming up after a short break. Stay with us. Welcome back. Now, Minneapolis and other U.S. cities are bracing for protests as the jury deliberates on the verdict in the George Floyd murder case. This follows 3 weeks of testimonies in the trial of the former police officer Derek Chauvin. In their closing arguments, the prosecution told jurors that Derek Chauvin is responsible for Floyd's murder, But the defender argued that their client correctly followed police training, calling him a reasonable officer. The jury is considering testimony from 45 witnesses, including doctors, use of force experts, and police officers. The court has been shielded by barbed wire, high barriers, and armed soldiers from the National Guard. Citing civil unrest threats, Minnesota Governor Tim Walz has declared a preemptive state of emergency in the Minneapolis metropolitan area.
This is our moment, Minnesota, to draw around our common humanity. The jury will decide that fate. I don't know what will come back. But what I do know is that we're going to be shaped by the response, both in the coming days and in the months and years to come. So that commitment to protect your right to protest, we'll continue to do it and do even better. We will protect your life and property, and we will do so within the limits of the law.
Now in Argentina, conservationists have successfully reintroduced a jaguar family into the Iberá National Park. It is a part of the efforts to save the America's largest feline species. The Brazilian-born mother Jaruna and her 2 cubs are the second jaguar family to be rewilded in the area. So far, 6 jaguars in total have been reintroduced to the Iberá National Park. Conservationists say their return will help the park's ecosystem. The species had been driven to extinction in this part of Argentina some 70 years ago. Officials report some 200 to 300 jaguars remain in the country. Now, NASA's miniature robot helicopter has made history with a successful flight on Mars. The U.S. Space Agency says this was the first powered, controlled flight by an aircraft over the surface of another planet. The Ingenuity helicopter hovered for 39 seconds before successfully landing on the Red Planet. The debut flight was documented in a full-color video by cameras aboard the science rover vehicle Perseverance. The rover carried the helicopter to the Red Planet 2 months ago. Officials have hailed the flight of the 1.8-kilogram rotorcraft as an achievement. They say it would pave the way for a new mode of aerial explorations in space. Now in Belgium, an artist has been walking around the capital Brussels wearing a portable greenhouse over his head. He says the contraption enables him to get fresh air while protecting him from the coronavirus. Who does not like being around lush green plants? But what if you could take them anywhere with you? Belgian artist and social worker Alain Verschuren has been wandering around Brussels with a portable oasis. A mini greenhouse which rests on his shoulders, protecting him in a bubble of air purified by the aromatic plants inside. The 61-year-old artist developed the idea 15 years ago after being inspired by the oasis in Tunisia where he used to work. Now, as social distancing and face coverings have been made mandatory amid the ongoing pandemic, his invention has gained a new lease of life.
When I first created these portable oases, it was about creating a bubble in which I could lock myself away, to cut myself off a world if I found it too dull, too noisy, or smelly. With plants, at least I have pleasant smells. As time went by, I noticed that people were coming up to me and talking to me. This isolation became much more a way of connecting with others.
Verschuren says he has asthma and finds breathing within the contraption more comfortable than wearing a face mask. Onlookers have expressed mixed reactions of amusement and confusion after seeing him encased in a pod of thyme, rosemary, and lavender plants.
It means maybe we should take care of the environment more. Like, it's very pretty to see plants everywhere. I feel like Belgium's missing a lot of that, so it'd be nice to see people with plants on their heads more often. That'd be cool.
Verschuren says he aims to encourage people to take better care of the environment and to reduce the need to protect themselves from air and noise pollution. Well, now, as vaccination efforts are accelerated worldwide, in Hungary, a confectionery shop has launched a range of COVID-19 jab-themed desserts for its customers. In Hungary, which is one of the worst-hit countries in the European Union by the pandemic, a local cake shop has a unique take on vaccines. The pastry shop has introduced sweet shots as a light-hearted antidote to angst over the different types of vaccines.
It was important for us to do lots so we can show that here people have a choice. There is no registration, there are no side effects. Anyone can try these, as the only possible side effect would be a little permanent smile on the face and good mood.
The delicacies are filled with jellies in different colors and flavors. The sign of our mousse is sweet and sour. AstraZeneca is flavored with lemon.
We, as a cake shop, do not want to make a campaign for or against. We just want to bring some cheerfulness into our everyday lives.
The owner, Katalin Banco, says she does not want to get involved in the politics of vaccination. Rather, her cake shop serves up an antidote to anxiety. Now, European stocks have declined, with global markets all showing luxury sentiment and tumbling tobacco stocks. Italy's FTSE MIB and the CAC 40 in Paris led the losses, falling nearly 1%. London's FTSE and the Pan-European Stock 600 have also slid more than 0.5%. Frankfurt's DAX has also shed marginally. Earlier, Asian stocks traded mixed after an overnight sell-off at Wall Street. Now in cricket, Pakistan have begun training for the upcoming T20 series against Zimbabwe at the Harare Sports Club. The two will play 3 T20 internationals followed by a 2-match test series. Green shirts return to the nets after all squad members tested negative for the coronavirus. The two teams will face off on April 21st. The second game will be played on 23rd, while the third on the 25th. The first test match will begin on the 29th of April. Pakistan are charged up after winning the ODI series against South Africa 2-1 and T20 series 3-1. Now in football, Leeds United have held Liverpool to a 1-1 draw at home in their Premier League face-off. The draw leaves Liverpool in 6th place with 53 points, one behind 5th placed Chelsea. Liverpool dominated the first half as Leeds missed several chances of scoring. Sadio Mane fired the Reds ahead in the 31st minute, netting the ball from 15 metres out. This was Mane's first Premier League goal after a run of 10 games. However, a late header from Leeds defender Diego denied the Reds a place in the top 4. They remain in 10th place with 46 points. Now, the United Kingdom says it will do whatever it takes to prevent a breakaway European Super League with 6 leading English clubs. Prime Minister Boris Johnson said ministers would be working to make sure the league did not go ahead as proposed. Details in this report. The news of a new breakaway league has created an overwhelmingly angry reaction across Europe. 6 English clubs alongside the Spanish trio, Real Madrid, Barcelona and Atletico Madrid, and 3 Italian clubs have agreed to join the new ESL. Manchester United fans outside the club's Old Trafford Stadium were not happy with the plan.
I think this is one of the saddest days in football history. I think it's one of the saddest days in United's history. I was saying this to my friend the other day. Football is one of the unique businesses where you can keep screwing and screwing over the consumers, the customers, the fans, and you don't just lose customers, you'll still carry on gaining customers because there's so much passion and love for it. And this is a thing that these foreign owners, they don't understand. They have no connection to these clubs and they're making decisions with a club they don't own.
Spanish giant Barcelona's fans were also not willing to opt for a new format. In China's capital Beijing, die-hard Barca fan Yang Ji said she was shocked at the announcement.
I'm not so sure about it. If they played some exhibition matches during some not so important periods of the years for soccer, then I would be willing to watch some fierce contest between clubs. But if it affects their own national leagues, that is if it affects the current traditional competitions including the Champions League, then I'm not really in favor at all.
The UEFA says clubs and players joining the breakaway league could be banned from all of its competitions and the World Cup. The 14 Premier League clubs not signed up to the ESL will meet later to assess the proposals and consider a response. Well, on the National Basketball Association, Russell Westbrook's triple-double helped Washington Wizards beat Oklahoma City Thunder 119-107 at home. This marks the 5th consecutive win for the Wizards, while the 11th straight defeat for the Thunder. Westbrook recorded 13 points, 11 rebounds and 17 assists for his 26th triple-double of the season. Bradley Beal also contributed 30 points for the Wizards. Meanwhile, Denver Nuggets narrowly as the Memphis Grizzlies, 139-137. Nikola Jokic scored 47 points for the Nuggets, followed by Will Barton adding 28. In other fixtures, Utah Jazz outperformed Los Angeles Lakers 111-97, while Chicago Bulls down short-handed Boston Celtics 102-96 points. And now let's have a look at how the weather is doing around the world. And that is all for now. For the latest updates, you can follow us on social media at Indus.news. Take care.